Morning, Patrea here. Did you know the origins of the 6 degrees of separation? That was a concept that was made famous by Kevin Bacon. They're called the Kevin Bacon game, I believe, of 6 degrees of separation. But it all began with an experiment back in the 1960s by the guy Stanley Milgram, who was a behavioral psychologist who did the experiment that looked at shocking people to find out degrees of obedience to authority. And it was a classic study in the 1960s. And anyway, he was also responsible for a study that looked at just how connected we are as humans. And what he did was that he got 300 people and they were asked to do a chain letter and to try and get as close as possible to finding this particular person who was located in a town called Sharon, Massachusetts. And anyway, 64 people ended up completing the experiment, and it took them essentially 5 people. So there were 6 links between the original person who started sending off the chain letter and the person who received it. So there were 5 people in between. So 6 degrees of separation. So what that begins to tell us is that we are socially connected people. So we can get across countries, etc., with only 5 people between us. That experiment was repeated using emails in 2003 with another group of experimenters. And again, they found the same kind of connections, that in order to get to one person who was a named person who these people didn't know, this time they used 24,000 people, or 24,000 people started, and about 400 finished. Again, it came down to between 5 and 7 people were the connectors between 2 completely unknown people. And so we humans are socially wired. So when they looked at the brain sizes, we're essentially equipped to cope with about 150 people in our social networks. That is based on what we were evolved, what our brain from a human to human kind of contact point has been able to do. But we've evolved in more, in the recent evolution of humans, to be able to cope with wider networks connected by technology and all sorts of other things. And through those larger connections, through organisations and corporates, etc., we're now able to do things that we were never able to do when we were just reliant on the face-to-face connections that we could maintain. So whilst on a personal, meaningful aspect or personal connection point of view, our connections probably still are smaller in the numbers, up to maybe that 150. The broader networks, in order to achieve certain things, can take thousands of people to achieve certain goals. So we are wired to be social, and those social connections help us to minimise harm being done to us, to protect us from certain things, but also to boost us in times of need. So wondering if you were to reflect on your social connections, where are the limits of your close connections, and what are the things you've been able to achieve that perhaps rely on a number of people in order to do things. So for instance, the cars we drive probably have had a load of people involved in the manufacturing of those, and we're now the beneficiaries of such great technology. Anyway, thought that was an interesting connection. What are the 6 degrees of separation you have that might connect you with some greatness? Perhaps some connections that you haven't yet tried. So look forward to hearing how you might be able to capitalize on your connections and enjoy the size of our human brain that is wired for being social. All right, cheers.